Well, first of all, I'd just like to say a big thank you for the contributions. Some of you have made some huge contributions to help us get off the ground with Harvest Trips, and we just really want to say thank you so much for that. We feel like a lot has been accomplished in a few months, and we want to give you some update on what that is.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's only been 8 months since we first got kicked off with the Harvest Trips communications and planning, and truly the being able to kind of focus a lot of energy on determining who is God building us to be as an organization, what's He setting us on the path to do. It's been great to be able to focus on that, and I'm excited to be able to give some updates about what God has done already over the last 8 months. So early on this year, we got to spend some extended time praying and thinking through what is our mission for Harvest Trips. And we actually came up with a phrase that has stuck, and it's to accelerate evangelistic growth globally. We found that fits well with everything that John's been training over the many years of ministry, and really was in line with what we were trying to do both locally and globally as Harvest Trips. And so we actually got to take 3 evangelistically focused trips where we took a team to a place for the purpose of accelerating evangelism. Early on, actually the tail end of 2023, we got to take a team up to Reno to help accelerate some evangelistic growth for Scott Lamberth in the planting of Pathfinder Church. And that was a great experience for our team. And then recently, we got to take a team from Compass Church in San Diego out to Taiwan to help Andy Worcester there with his church plant called Islands Church. And also they got to share the gospel many times, about 20 plus times, with different people around Taiwan. And then most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a team come from Texas at Hope Church up to Kansas City to help accelerate evangelistic growth of a new church plant that's taking place in a little town called Riverside. And real exciting news there, we had 2 people actually pray and receive Jesus Christ on that trip, really bolstering the activity of the church planter there. So that's been a lot of fun getting to see some of the culminations of the Harvest Like Jesus training, and specifically taking teams on Harvest Trips.
Yeah, and there's another kind of trip that we've been taking. We've taken 2 international training trips, one to Mongolia and one to India. The Mongolia trip, they were able to gather about 50 pastors and church planters that we got to train for a 3-day conference, and it was a good experience. We learned a lot from it. They learned a lot from it. We also got to interact in some other cities there, and some other groups in Mongolia, and we think that's going to turn into a really good partnership for us in the future. The other thing that I'm really excited about is the trip to India. We got an opportunity to do some training for basically a movement that's going on in India. And one guy named Janoy, he 18 years ago, or I think it was 18 years ago, he started a ministry, and then he started a second one. Long story short, ends up right now between those 2 ministries that he started, they have 28,000 house churches that are going, averaging about 12 people a piece, which is some pretty amazing kind of things. And when we did our training of them, we trained with what we call Harvest Like Jesus principles. So we used the Gospels, we used what Jesus did. And those, when we shared it with them, they resonated with it quite well. They said, this is giving us kind of biblical categories and biblical information that supports what we already see God doing in our work. And so we were able to add some things. But the big takeaway from that is that we learned some things from them. And then I came back to San Diego, and Stephen has gone back to Kansas City, and we are now putting into practice some of the things we learned from them. And that hands-on practice of doing that is really we're seeing good fruit. We've seen several people come to Christ already in San Diego just in the last few months. I'm leading a couple of groups, seen a couple of people come to Christ in those groups already. And we've got, I don't know, 25 or 30 people starting new groups in San Diego. So we're pretty excited about the potential of this and learning and hoping to see some semblance of movement begin to start here in North America as well.
Thanks, John. I want to share a little bit about what we're going to do in the future that's coming up and already happening, actually. So when we came back from India and started to put into practice some of the things we were learning, we realized we're building a team, a harvest team. We've got some people in India, we've got some people now in Mongolia, and friends in Taiwan, and people in San Diego and in Kansas City and all over the globe now that are putting these principles of trying to just harvest the right fruit that Jesus is building. And they're doing that all over the world. And so John has started to build this team in San Diego who are actually learning how to reach out to their friends, their lost friends, and to gather groups around the Bible. We're calling them Discovery Bible Studies. And that's taking place in San Diego. And we're taking the same approach in Kansas City, both at my church, River Park Church, and beyond. Even people that aren't going to any church are starting to get involved in some of these Discovery Bible Studies. And so we realized that our organization, though we do take trips, we're actually even more focused on building teams. Some of these teams go on trips, but really what we want to see is to build harvest teams who live out these principles every day of their life. It's just part of their personal ministry. They're reaching out, they're trying to harvest the right fruit and gather them into groups around God's word. And so that's been one of the big additions to the focuses of Harvest Trips is building teams, so much so that we've decided to rename the organization into Harvest Teams, because that encapsulates trips, but also the regional teams in San Diego, Kansas City, and all over the world.
That's right. And the whole idea of the teams is a little bit broader. We're still going to be doing trips. Trips will still be a really important part of what we do, but it's actually teams that go on the trips to do the evangelism and to do the training. So that fits, that we just feel like it fits better the overall scope of what we were trying to do. One other thing I want to also just update you on for the future is that Janoy, the guy in India, has invited us back to train another group of his top leaders. And so we're going to be able to do a family conference for them, where they're bringing in several families and to help their marriages, and which is something that they need some help with right now. And we're also going to be doing the same trainings, the Harvest Like Jesus trainings, in 2 or 3 different places in India when we go back, and that'll be happening in November. So we're pretty excited about that next big trip that we're kind of preparing all the materials and things for that.
Yeah, actually one exciting opportunity, and again, a big thank you for all the contributions that were made at the beginning of the year here. We were able to adopt a new state in terms of supporting church planters, people who are willing to set aside some of their careers to help accelerate the evangelistic growth in this different state in India. And they've already had a lot of fruit going there, but they've just been kind of pulling from other budgets to make that happen. And so we were able to really pour some fuel on the flame there to accelerate that. And so we're excited to get back out there in November to meet some of those leaders in that state that we're able to help financially support. So we're excited about that opportunity coming up. One other opportunity we want to let you know about is we've been also invited back to Mongolia. And in the spring, last week of April, first week of May of 2025, we're going to take a evangelistic harvest trip out to Mongolia. And so we have a few spots available on that team. So if you're interested in taking a trip to Mongolia and getting to share Jesus pretty directly with some people, let us know. We'd love to have you join us in that. So to build our harvest team for that trip.
And then also, speaking of Mongolia, we're back to that trip. We're also going to go back to do some training. And they are setting up different training conferences around the major city there and in some of the sub-cities in Mongolia. And so we're going to have a chance to do that. One of the reasons that we're picking Mongolia to be one of the focal points of it is that it's very unchurched. Only about 2% of the population are Christian, but it's open to the gospel. We can do direct evangelism, and the people are ready to begin to respond to the gospel. And so we want to keep going back there. And the other aspect of it is that we have found a mission organization. They have the infrastructure to help us facilitate the team's work there and when we go to Mongolia, which is a big help to us. We don't have to provide all the logistics and things for those trips and for those conferences. So that's a real plus for us. And then one of the reasons we go on these trips right now, these early trips, is to find those partners that we can do the long-term connections with.
And speaking of partners, just one last final thank you for all of you who have been praying for us as we go on trips and as we've been kind of designing the organization here. In a way, you've all been a part of our Harvest team. You're all on the team, and we're all a part of God's team, just participating in the work of the ministry with Him. So thanks so much for joining us in this. We're excited to keep on sending out updates. We will be starting a podcast, so look forward to that, to hearing some of these principles taught in a short format.